Waco. I am your host, Debbie, here to help you get in the know about Waco.
This week, I'm going to be talking about some upcoming things and some of Waco's history. I have a special guest in the studio. If you want, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Bobby Horner. I work for the City of Waco Development Services Department. I have lived in Waco for 45 years. Went to school here. I've been with the city about 19 and a half years. And we oversee a lot of the development that we might talk about here in a minute, and a lot of the neat stuff going on here in Waco. So I love it here. I mean, this is home, and I love talking about it.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you've been in Waco for such a long time. One of the main things I want to talk about today is Waco's history. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe the founding of Waco and some of the early days?
Yeah, Waco started as a village, Waco Village, back in the early 1800s. And some Texas Rangers came up and helped settle and protect some of the early villagers. And Waco what's really cool about Waco is not only do they have a major river that runs through it, but Waco had artesian wells. Waco had a lot of the cotton industry grew here. It was one of the largest inland cotton industries in this part of the country for many years, like the end of the Civil War up until the Great Depression. And then the other thing that really helped put Waco on the map was the historic Chisholm Trail. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where the suspension bridge comes in eventually, because this was the low water crossing for all these cattle that were coming up from deep South Texas and going to Abilene, Kansas. And so you've got cattle, you've got cotton, you've got just growth. And so people were coming here, and Waco was kind of keeping pace with Austin and Dallas for many years until we hit that fateful day in May 11th, 1953, the tornado.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and do you want to talk a little bit about the Alico building, speaking of tornado?
Well, speaking of the tornado, the Alico building was really it was a very unique engineering design. It was one of the first buildings to have a steel superstructure, which actually it was designed to withstand those high winds. So the Alico building withstood that F5 tornado, and even though it swayed, it stood its ground, so to speak, and it was a symbol of strength back then. And even though it's not the tallest skyscraper by any stretch of the imagination anymore, it's still a symbol of strength for Waco. And it's got a lot of neat engineering designs, which, being in the architecture side of things, was particularly interesting to me. But been in it, been on top of it, so it's you can see for miles. It is a gorgeous building.
Yeah, and I know the whole structure of downtown has changed. You want to talk about some of the development and some of the history of downtown Waco itself?
Right. Waco has never been through this kind of growth that everybody's seeing right now. And the interesting thing is, and what I tell people when I talk to them, is that the growth is just not in one area of Waco. Mm-hmm. It's not just downtown. It's not just along the river. It's everywhere. And with Texas having the 9th largest economy in the world, people are moving here, from California, all over the country. And of course, there's, the little TV show that's popular around these parts. It's bringing people literally
just
around
a small
the world.
TV.
Yeah, just a small TV
I don't think you've
show.
ever heard of it before.
Yeah. But people around the world are coming to see Chip and Jo and all the stuff they've done. But I always tell people, too, Waco was growing before that show ever even hit. And that's what's so neat about it. Now, of course, when that took off, we tell people it's kind of like threw gas on the fire. I mean, it just exploded. COVID kind of screwed things up a little bit for a while, but people are really, even today when I walk around town, you see people coming back. I mean, people I think are really enjoying getting out. So really some neat stuff going on.
Yeah, so you have such an interesting vantage point. What is it like comparing today's growth versus historic growth in Waco?
Well, today's growth is just one thing I noticed when I was first at the city. Waco was starting to have a little bit of upward growth, nothing like it is right now. But I noticed that I think downtown development was waiting for that one or two people to really step out in faith and start developing some of these older buildings. River Square Center was one of the first ones, and then another developer came in, and the Chamber building was new, and then the apartments next to it, and that kind of started a synergy where people say, okay, they did it, they made it work, so let's do it. And then of course, Spice Village and all of that just started to develop, and people had asked me, at different times, Waco's got this river. Why hasn't Waco done anything with the river? And so for the 40-something years I've lived here, it is so great to see finally. I've been here in riverfront development for years, and finally, it is happening. So that's what's exciting to me, and just getting to be a part of all that and see it happening, and meeting the developers and seeing what they're doing.
Yeah. And especially since you've been on the development board for so long and you've been working with them, I imagine you get, an insight on all the new and exciting things that are coming to Waco and are planning to come to Waco. What is something that you would like to see more of in Waco?
Well, it's kind of funny. People will come to me and say, okay, I saw something being built over there. What is it? Bobby, tell me what this is. You're the person I go to. What is it? There are some things that we can talk about, and some things that we've been asked by of course, usually it's the bigger developers that say, hey, kind of keep a lid on it until we're ready. And we respect that. I know that people, as far as what they would like to see, and we're starting to see that, Top Golf and some of those kind of venues.
The new Signmark
Yeah, that's right. Cinemark, all of that is exciting to see, a main event. And so there's some entertainment venues coming in.
Ooh.
Of course, I've been asked for years, are we getting a Papados? Are we getting a Trader Joe's?
Everybody always asks.
So I said, I've got my
Foods.
fingers crossed. I'm hoping, I'm trying, but I really think once this riverfront development really kicks into gear, you're going to start seeing that, because that is $100 million worth of work. And it's going to be a combination of restaurants. It's going to be dining along the river, shopping, living areas. The developer, Catalyst Urban Development, they really specialize in developments like this, where it makes really easy to walk through, more of an urban feel. And so with all the development, walkways on both sides of the river, plans for the old abandoned railroad track that goes across the river, and possibly making it similar to the High Line in New York, where people can walk across it, vendors. So that's what excites me about all this, and just to see all the people getting to tell people about it. And that's one thing, just if I may say real quick, one of the things that people have told me that have visited here, they said, yeah, everybody's so nice here. It's like that.
Of course, yeah.
It's like that good old Southern hospitality. And of course, I think that's what really draws people. Of course, Chip and Joe do their part to give some nice, wholesome TV, and I think that draws a lot of people. But all the other people that are investing in downtown, the small, the coffee shops, the food trucks, that's gotten really big here. Our farmers market, you know how big that is. So it's just, there's a lot of neat things falling into place. I'm not saying our Mary Street will be like 6th Street in Austin, but I know the city's really trying to develop Mary Avenue. We've got like 3 hotels downtown being proposed, 3 across the river, and that's just downtown. And so once that starts to open up, it's going to be really cool to see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all of this development that's happening, especially, on this side of the river and on the east side of Waco. Do you want to talk about maybe the push and pull of East Waco and the development that's happening over there?
Oh, yeah, that's what's really exciting. East Waco for decades, was basically economically depressed. And early back in the early 1900s, that was due to, before we had flood controls on the Brazos, it would flood, and that's the low side of the river. So you really couldn't develop a lot, because it flooded, it would ruin everything. Well, now that we've got, of course, the low water dam and we've got consistent water levels, that just helps the riverfront. That helps to keep the flooding at bay. But to see the development over there now on Bridge Street, see the hotels, the apartments, the restaurants, a bank, the food trucks, man, and just the upgrades to Elm Avenue itself is just really exciting. And so, once the suspension bridge gets finished in another probably year and a half, however long that takes, it's going to once again tie both sides of the city together right there on Bridge Street, and it's just really going to be neat. A great place for people to meet, families to meet, concerts. So that's what's neat to watch.
Yeah, and you just briefly mentioned the suspension bridge. Do you want to talk about the progress that's happening right there?
Yeah, probably people say the progress is not fast enough, but
like I-35.
yeah, but considering that bridge has not been upgraded since 1914, it has stood the test of time. And when they get through upgrading it this time, hopefully it'll be there for another 100, 150 years. But doesn't look like much right now with all that plastic over it to protect.
It looks like a tube.
Yeah, while they're and there's no suspension to it at all. That's why they built all those extra bracing and forms underneath. But I understand that the city's looking at maybe taking some of that old cabling and sectioning it off, and maybe, I don't know if they're going to auction it or sell it or what, just for souvenirs. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, so that's going to be really cool, and so that's neat to watch. The other neat things, if I may, real quick on the bridge, about 300 feet from there, the Washington Avenue Bridge is the last remaining bridge of its kind in the United States that's still used for auto pedestrian traffic.
Wow.
So that bridge, the suspension bridge, of course, the interurban railway that we had back in the early 50s and before, that just really helped make Waco a real economic place to be.
Of course.
And it was growing. And even after the tornado, Waco kind of sat dormant for several decades. And then finally, again, that one or two people started to step out on faith. The Dr. Pepper Museum, which I was a part of in 1991 when it opened. I was working for an architect. That building, the old Waco Hardware building, now where Spice Village is, those were kind of the, and so I think there's an insurance building right down there across from the Dr. Pepper Museum. Those are some of the first buildings that kind of started the renovation of downtown Waco. So it's again, it just takes one or two people to step out on faith, and other people join in.
Yeah, and I've been looking at historical pictures of downtown Waco from the pedestrian mall. How do you think that's inspiring today's development?
Oh, yeah. Well, one of the exciting things to me is I've got some old historic pictures that I'm going to frame and put in my office. I know the convention center has a bunch of those old pictures, the old suspension bridge. But I think what's really cool is that people are taking these older buildings, and I think it is so cool that these older buildings are being repurposed into businesses. Of course, Chip and Joe bought the castle, and we're waiting to see what they're going to do with that. But just buildings that had such a big impact of who Waco was, and it still is, and that is just such a big deal. I know for me personally, but just for others, just to bring people back. I've had, I don't know how many people tell me, I had no idea this was in Waco, Texas. So it is so cool to really to watch that, to talk to people, and people that do tourism here and say, man, I've toured all over the world, and this is the best place, that kind of thing. So that makes you feel good. It makes you feel good.
Yeah, and what do you love about our community here as you talk about your love for people and your love for the community?
Well, as I said, it's people will ask me, I guess, Waco's growing. Yeah, Waco's growing, but so far, in my opinion, Waco still has that small town feel to it. Now, I'm in Hamilton, a little over an hour from here. I grew up in small town, so when I was living there as a little boy and come over to Waco, this was big city to me. So, and I used to, I can still remember, I used to hate coming downtown Waco at the time because there was just people everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we went through the 70s and 80s. That the downtown pedestrian mall thing didn't work, and people moved out, and but we got through that. And
Mm-hmm.
now to see all these businesses coming back downtown, my whole view is different as I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten older, and I have an appreciation for it. But it's all coming into play. People want to see these buildings
Mm-hmm.
restored, and people are getting on board with that, and they're doing that.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And we have such, a strong community right now
Yes.
that's wanting to develop,
Yes, it is.
which has influenced it
Yeah.
immensely, and has changed so much.
And that's one of the things that I like about when the chamber has been a part of this Thousand Friends of Waco each
Mm-hmm.
month. And I always encourage people, if they haven't ever been, to come and sit in on that, because every month we usually have new people. It's not we have some of the core group that
Mm-hmm.
come, but then we have new folks that come,
Mm-hmm.
and they get to share about what they're doing with their business, and programs like this, you get to share about that, and it's free advertising, and it's fun, and you get to meet people. And the other thing that the chamber does, I work closely with Jennifer Branch, who oversees the Thousand Friends. We're really making an effort, and she's really tried to make an effort at least every other month.
Mm-hmm.
And if she could find the places, she'd probably do it every month, but at least every other month, go to a local business that has room, and we try to highlight that business.
Mm-hmm.
And so it helps other people to see this business, get them a chance to talk about it. And then next month or the following, we'll go somewhere else and do
Yeah.
the same thing. So that is where I see the community really coming into play and supporting the growth of Waco. And I honestly do not see an end to it. People say, well, it's got to end sometime. Well, maybe, but
Not
I'm
yet.
I'm not seeing it.
Not yet.
I am not seeing it. And with I mean, what's not funny, but it's really neat to see, Waco, Texas in particular, and then Waco has been zeroed in on by a lot of these international companies.
Mm-hmm.
There's several companies from Germany that are
Oh, really?
opening up their largest ever plants here in Waco.
And of course, we have Amazon.
Amazon, that's just one of the big buildings here. We've got Usine Utz, which is a big German company that does flooring.
Mm-hmm.
They have a training center up in Dover, Delaware,
Wow.
but they're bringing that training facility to Waco.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's going to be over 1,000,
Mhm.
people coming in for training. Right down the street from there, you've got Zinc Power, which
Mhm.
they do zinc coating on these big steel
Mm-hmm.
telephone poles and or towers, and they have 50 of these plants around the world. Well, Waco, Texas has their largest one.
Wow.
So it's things like that. Envasis is a company out of Mexico that makes aluminum cans, and Coca-Cola is one of their bigger clients, and so they're coming to Waco.
Of course, because we have Coca-Cola
That's
here.
right, exactly. So that's the other neat thing. People say little old Waco, Texas, and all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
the attention of the world. SpaceX,
All that manufacturing infrastructure just coming in.
yeah, SpaceX. Then
Mhm.
I know that the chamber's working to develop the aeronautical park out at
Mhm.
TSTC, and so a lot of space type industry.
Mhm.
Of course, with SpaceX and Elon Musk moving down near
Yeah, of
Austin,
course.
and so
The city
Anyway.
that Elon Musk bought, he's actually changing the name to Stardust, Texas.
Stardust.
Stardust.
Oh, Stardust, Texas. Wow. How appropriate. But it's just, I really get on a roll talking about this because
Mhm.
it is exciting to see.
Yeah, of
And
course.
so I know the chamber is really trying to keep, all these graduates from Baylor, TSTC, MCC, keep them here in Waco.
Yeah, and it's amazing because we have 5 campuses here, and not a lot of
Yep.
people realize that. They
Right.
just think Baylor,
That's
but we have MCC, TSDC, we have Baylor, we have 2 satellite campuses
right.
with Tarleton and Texas Tech.
Yep. That's right.
So it's really amazing to just think
Yep.
about that.
That's right. And so with the effort to try to get these companies that come in to pay a higher wage, that's going to obviously be interest to people. And so there's just a lot of neat synergy going on here in a
Hmm.
lot of different areas. People are all jumping on board with it. And I just see Waco's one of the destination cities now.
Hmm.
Who would have thunk it? But for Waco, Texas, but it is. And the other thing, just I wanted to say real quick about Waco in general is just, Waco, like probably a lot of other cities, they've had their black eyes. They've had some bad things happen, but there's been a lot of really, really good things happen. And
Hmm.
Waco and their people here are very resilient, and they rebound really carefully. And my former boss, when I first came to the city, told me, he said, for whatever reason in Texas, and of course we're here in Waco, but it seems like we're the last to go into economic depression, but one of the first to come out.
Hmm.
We just don't take the hit
Yeah.
like other parts of the country do, and so that's very fortunate for us. And I think developers, big companies see that, and they've got their eye on Texas and Waco for sure.
Yeah. Is there anyone else that you want to shout out or any organizations you would like to share about?
Again, I've said the chamber several times. There's a lot of different organizations that, the Waco Arts Center
Hmm.
and that are really trying to develop the
Yeah, they
cultural
have their
art
new
district.
development
Yes,
over there on
that's
8th
right.
Street.
That's right. And of course, the home market, the builders, even though they've had high prices to deal with on
Of
materials, they're
course.
still
Hmm.
building. And just the people that have, just in general, the people that have bought into Waco, that are investing their money and bringing these cool places, to whether it's Top Golf, Main Events, Cinemark, any of these places, the riverfront. It's all it's just all coming together,
Yeah.
and so it's going to be exciting to see. Waco is going to look a lot different in the next. Well, it is now, but in the next 5 years, in particularly as the development comes on. Of course,
For sure. Yeah.
Baylor's always got something going
Of
on
course.
over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but it's really neat. I'm really proud of it. I love it here, and this is my home, and
Yeah.
so it's really a great place.
Yeah. And where can our listeners find out more information about the City of Waco and developmental services?
Well, they can go certainly to our city website. One of the things that I'm working on, and I hope to send the first one out first part of June, is we've never had a newsletter. It's going to be online at least at first, but a newsletter dedicated specifically for the development of Waco and all the different departments that are involved. If somebody wants to build a building, somebody wants to remodel one of these old buildings, what's that about? I'm going to start putting pictures of the riverfront up there in future newsletters. And I don't know exactly how often we'll send this out initially, but that is one way that people can keep up with it. And then, of course, as I said, the Thousand Friends of Waco is open each month, the third Wednesday of the month, and so that is a good way because every month I do a report of projects coming to Waco.
Oh,
So
cool.
Anyway, so it's fun to talk about those, and people ask questions. And when is this open? When is this open? What is this over here? So I enjoy doing that. It is a lot of fun.
Yeah. And is there anything else you want to share with our listeners today?
Just the tourism side of Waco, it's really coming back. I mentioned earlier when I get out and walk just about every day, and I may walk by Magnolia or I walk around town and just seeing everybody here. It's seeing all the different license plates from different parts of the country. And I remember reading that in 2018, Waco, Texas was like the second biggest tourist place next to Lanai, Hawaii, which still kind of
I know.
have to stop
I need
and
to go
think
to
about
Hawaii.
that. Yeah. So, but when you have something that people really enjoy doing and can have fun, they're going to come back and they're going to bring their friends back, or they're just going to come back. So I would encourage people, tell their friends, come to Waco, check Waco out. A lot of different apps that tells you things to do in Waco, or just come downtown and walk around.
Yeah.
You know,
And of
so.
course, check out nowaco.com.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So,
And how did you actually find No Waco? Because you actually messaged me through my website.
Right. Well, actually, I think it was from from Thousand Friends initially.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then I get the emails.
Mm-hmm.
So
Perfect.
So that's the way I try to, and that's another thing. I try to keep my eyes and ears open for things. And I think I need to check that out. You know, so I'm gonna. That's just one of the ways I try to keep up with what's going on.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate you doing things like this, and
Yeah, and thank you for coming on.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and really enjoyed it. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this week's podcast. This is your host, Debbie, signing off. Now that you know, go. Just go, Waco.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.